Good morning, Lighthouse. It's Emily. We're back with Cycle Breakers, Lesson 2. Our focus today is Rahab. We'll be reading from Joshua 2, 1-24. That's the whole book. And then moving over to chapter 6 and taking a look at verses 17 to 25. So we're going to just dive right into the word. All right, I'm going to be reading from ESV. And Joshua the son of Nun sent 2 men secretly from Shittim as spies, saying, "Go view the land, especially Jericho." And they went and came into the house of a prostitute whose name was Rahab, and lodged there. And it was told to the king of Jericho, "Behold, men of Israel have come here tonight to search out the land." Then the king of Jericho sent to Rahab, saying, "Bring out the men who have come to you, who entered your house, for they have come to search out all the land." But the woman had taken the 2 men and hid them. And she said, "True, the men came to me, but I did not know where they were from. And when the gate was about to be closed at dark, the men went out. I do not know where the men went. Pursue them quickly, for you will overtake them." But she had brought them up to the roof and hid them with the stalks of flax that she had laid in order on the roof. So the men pursued after them on the way to the Jordan as far as the fords, and the gate was shut as soon as the pursuers had gone out. I think I've read this before, and I didn't realize how intense or risky this decision was, right? We think, oh, that's really nice of her to help these people. She's never met them. They're basically her enemies, right? So she's betraying her people and lying to her king to protect these men. We're like, why is she doing that? We'll read on and find out. Before the men lay down, she came up to them on the roof and said to the men, "I know that the Lord has given you the land, and that the fear of you has fallen upon us, and that all the inhabitants of the land melt away before you. For we have heard how the Lord dried up the water of the Red Sea before you when you came out of Egypt, and what you did to the 2 kings of the Amorites who were beyond the Jordan, to Sihon and Og, whom you devoted to destruction. And as soon as we heard it, our hearts melted, and there was no spirit left in any man because of you. For the Lord your God, He is God in the heavens above and on the earth beneath. Now then, please swear to me by the Lord that as I have dealt kindly with you, you will also deal kindly with my father's house, and give me a sure sign that you will save alive my father and mother, my brothers and sisters, and all who belong to them, and deliver our lives from death." And the men said to her, "Our life for yours, even to death. If you do not tell this business of ours, then when the Lord gives us the land, we will deal kindly and faithfully with you." I do want to point out verses 9 to 11, just that she has heard about the God of Israel and what He's done. This is very important. We'll come back to this later. Then she let them down by a rope through the window, for her house was built into the city wall, so that she lived in the wall. And she said to them, "Go into the hills, or the pursuers will encounter you, and hide there 3 days until the pursuers have returned. Then afterward you may go your way." The men said to her, "We will be guiltless with respect to this oath of yours that you have made us swear. Behold, when we come into the land, you shall tie this scarlet cord in the window through which you let us down, and you shall gather into your house your father and mother, your brothers, and all your father's household. Then if anyone goes out of the doors of your house into the street, his blood shall be on his own head, and we shall be guiltless. But if a hand is laid on anyone who is with you in the house, his blood shall be on our head. But if you tell this business of ours, then we shall be guiltless with respect to your oath that you have made us swear." And she said, "According to your words, so be it." Then she sent them away, and they departed. And she tied the scarlet cord in the window. They departed and went into the hills and remained there 3 days until the pursuers returned, and the pursuers searched all along the way and found nothing. Then the 2 men returned. They came down from the hills and passed over and came to Joshua the son of Nun, and they told him all that had happened to them. And they said to Joshua, "Truly the Lord has given all the land into our hands, and also all the inhabitants of the land melt away because of us." Okay. Moving on, we'll see what happens in Joshua 16, starting in 6, verse 17. "And the city and all that is within it shall be devoted to the Lord for destruction." So now the plan is in place where you've heard of the fall of Jericho, right? Where the Israelites don't go in and fight, but march around the city. So they're doing that 6 times. And on the 7th time, the priests blow the trumpets, the people shout, And what's supposed to happen is the walls are supposed to fall down. Okay. All right. And the city and all that is within it shall be devoted to the Lord for destruction. Only Rahab the prostitute and all who are with her in the house shall live, because she hid the messengers whom we sent. But you keep yourselves from the things devoted to destruction, lest when you have devoted them, you take any of the devoted things and make the camp of Israel a thing for destruction and bring trouble upon it. But all silver and gold and every vessel of bronze and iron are holy to the Lord, and they shall go into the treasury of the Lord. So the people shouted, and the trumpets were blown. As soon as the people heard the sound of the trumpet, the people shouted a great shout, and the wall fell down flat, so that the people went up into the city, every man straight before him, and they captured the city. Then they devoted all in the city to destruction, both men and women, young and old, oxen, sheep, and donkeys, with the edge of the sword. But to the 2 men who spied out the land, Joshua said, Go into the prostitute's house and bring out from there the woman and all who belong to her, as you swore to her. So the young men who had been spies went in and brought out Rahab and her father and mother and brothers and all who belonged to her. And they brought all her relatives and put them outside the camp of Israel. And they burned the city with fire and everything in it. Only the silver and gold and the vessels of bronze and iron they put into the treasury of the house of the Lord. But Rahab the prostitute and her father's household and all who belonged to her, Joshua saved alive. And she has lived in Israel to this day, because she hid the messengers whom Joshua sent to spy out Jericho. All right. Let's talk about some of the main ideas in this story. So going back to verses 9 to 12 in chapter 2, one of the big things I saw here was the more you know God, the more you will trust him, right? So Rahab had done this very risky thing, which was very, I mean, she didn't know exactly what was going to happen to her after saving these men, right, from the enemies, right? Verse 11. She had heard of what God had done in Egypt and the Amorites. She had heard the fame of God and his power had spread among all the people around Israel. And she recognized that this was the true God, right? She's in Jericho. The Canaanites worship other gods, but she saw that, yeah, our gods don't compare. This is the real deal, right? If she had heard nothing about him, or just heard that, oh yeah, like the other country has this other god, and they have this tent for him, and she might have thought, okay, interesting, cool, whatever, right? But she had heard of what he'd actually done, the proof, the power of him, right? And this applies, I think, to us as well, right? Even people, right? If you're walking down the street and a stranger pulls up in a car and says, hey, I'm a very trustworthy and kind person, let me give you a ride home, you'd say, no, thank you, and run as fast as you could away, call the police possibly, right? You don't know this person, you don't trust them, right? But for example, you're walking down the street and I don't know, your parents pull up and they're driving a car and they're like, are you walking home? Let me give you a ride, right? And you'd say, oh yeah, of course, thanks, mom or dad. And that makes sense, right? Because you know them, you have intimate knowledge of them, you have a relationship, you can trust them, right? You know that I'm going to get into that car and I will get to my destination and I will be safe, right? So it's the same when it comes to God, right? If we know some stories about him and we, right, we kind of, look at the Bible from time to time, we're like, okay, I've heard this and that about God, right? You might think, okay, I don't know how he applies to me, right? But as you read more and more of the Bible and spend more time with him, and you know of God's character, his, boundless power, right? His ability to do anything in and outside of nature, right? He's compassionate, deeply caring for people, even for the really small things that we don't necessarily think he sees, right? As you get to know God, you'll say, hey, he really does love and care about me, and he can take care of me. I can trust him. And that's how, Rahab, had just a little bit of God, right? She knew just a little bit, but that was enough for her to trust him, right? Because of what she knew about him. All right. The next point is breaking a cycle will require faith and action, right? So Rahab knew, right, about God, but knowing was not enough, right? To truly follow him and, to start her life over, she had to take this big risk, right? She had to, hide these spies and basically betray her people. She was a traitor. Everyone she ever knew, right? Everyone she ever knew, unfortunately, died, right? Like, except for her family. But it took taking a step of faith where she hid them, and she had that scarlet cord, right, in the window, and she hid. She didn't know exactly what was going to happen. She didn't know about their plan of marching around Jericho or anything. She just had to wait. She took her step of faith and then had to trust, right? So when we are, in a cycle that we need to be breaking, right, it doesn't require just an understanding of the problem, but it actually requires us to take some steps, right, in faith, trusting that God is going to help us through it. And then the last point is that our past does not determine our future. And I think Rahab really beautifully illustrates this. So Rahab, right, in title is maybe the last person you would think that God would want to save. And that's a stereotype, right? She is a Canaanite. She worships other gods, right? She's a prostitute, which is not a very honorable job, right? We're thinking, this person seems to be stuck in a cycle, right? But we see that God saves her, right, and her family. He keeps the men keep their promise that they've made to her, and she lives in Israel, essentially incorporated into this people. And the cool thing actually is that she eventually becomes the father of Boaz, who marries Ruth. Who is in the line of King David, who eventually is in the line of Jesus. So this person who wasn't originally even an Israelite, who comes from, kind of a shady background, right? God incorporates very literally into his family. And actually, as I read chapters 2 and then kind of through 3, 4, and 5, it was really interesting to see how these spies, right, initially were kind of coming to scout out the land, do some recon, and bring back information to see how they could take over the land. In chapter 6, we realized there's no big military operation. The people are walking around the city. There's nothing in the city that really will help them with anything. So this spy mission, really, God used to just save Rahab and her family, which I think is really cool. So let's go on to our discussion questions now. Number 1, so let's see. 1 and 2 are related to the first point. 3 is related to the second point, and 4 and 5 are related to my last main idea. Okay. So number 1 says, how does what you believe about God affect how much you trust him? Okay. And then number 2 is a little more specific. What do you believe about God's power, interest, or care in your life? Do any of these beliefs need to change? So kind of thinking about those specific things you personally think about God. Are there any misconceptions that need to be corrected? Are there kind of things that you kind of know in your head, but maybe don't quite believe in your heart? Like, I know God is big and powerful, but how could he possibly care about, one person intimately and like really care about my life? Something like that. That's something that would need to change. Number 3 says, what thing, big or small, is God asking you to risk in order to follow him? Okay. Number 4 says, what are things from the past that hold you back? Why? Why do they hold you back? How are ways that you have tried to deal with them? Number 5 says, is there anything God is asking you to release to him today? Take some time to pray about it. And just to clarify about number 4, things that hold you back could be a previous sin or mistake, right? Maybe a lifestyle choice like Rahab, right? But it could also be something that's been done to you. It's not your fault. There could have been trauma, past hurt that you just hold on to, and it's caused you to be stuck in some way, right? So this series covers, kind of a lot of different things. I wanted to end with this one verse to encourage us, right, from 2 Corinthians in chapter 5, verse 17. Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. The old has passed away. Behold, the new has come, right? So we're not defined by our past. We know that God wants to help us to make our lives full and joyful, right? And that the things that maybe can drag us down or weigh us down can be redeemed by God, and we can be saved from that. There is a short activity called Words to Live By that's optional that I've sent to your counselor. So if you guys want to do that as a small group after your discussion, you can. But I believe it involves kind of, using a piece of scripture to kind of help you remind a certain truth about God. Like, that's my understanding of what it is, but that's optional. Okay. All right. I hope you guys have a great discussion and I guess a great week.
I'm excited to announce that we will be restarting our student ministry team for the 2021-22 academic year. It's been unfortunate that we had to skip this past year, but we are planning on coming back. Student ministry is for rising 9th graders to 12th graders who desire to serve Lighthouse with a willing servant's heart. If you're not familiar with SMT, allow me to give you a brief introduction. I'll explain why we have SMT, how SMT is conducted, and what we do at SMT. The purpose of student ministry team is for students to minister to students in Lighthouse to build up ministry skills for the glory of God and to be like Christ. We believe that students can effectively minister to one another, but that takes practice, encouragement, and a teachable heart to develop ministry skills so that you can live Christ out in your life. We don't expect you to have all the skills today, but we do desire that you are committed to your own spiritual growth and you desire to spiritually grow alongside other SMT students. Next, how does SMT work? Or what makes SMT distinctive? SMT is charged to engage in discipleship by shaping Lighthouse's events, activities, feel, and culture by exercising both your leadership and your spiritual leadership. And we accomplish that by gathering high school students who are willing to lead Lighthouse spiritually. It's a commitment to be a disciple who is being discipled by your SMT counselor and discipling and encouraging other students. We have 4 sub-teams that make up SMT overall: InReach, Outreach, Logistics, and Music and AV. InReach's objective is to make Lighthouse a fun and engaging place to be. Outreach's objective is to learn how to share the gospel as a student with others. Now, if you're interested in logistics and you prefer to work in the background, this is a great way to help keep everyone up to date on what's going on at Lighthouse. And lastly, the objective for Music and AV is to lead worship sets and to help run the AV so we can all have a great experience worshiping God musically. At SMT, these are the things that we care most about: teamwork, teachability, prayer, excellence, and the belief that students really can minister to other students. If you'll be a high schooler in the fall and you're interested in serving on SMT, you'll need to fill out an application by emailing me for one. Don't ask another student or counselor for the application. Also, you'll need to be willing to make the commitment to be present at Lighthouse for both Fridays and Sundays, even though you may have a primary day that you'll be serving. Also, if you're considering serving at Awana, we ask that you kindly choose one area to serve in. I have an estimated timeline provided to give you an idea of what to expect schedule-wise, but to be honest, it could change as we get a better idea of what to expect as a church as the new school year starts. I will update you as we have more information. Thanks for considering serving on SMT this year. I can't wait to get SMT started again. Your youth retreat is on and registration is live right now. Go tell your parents and register at acc.church/youthretreat. All the details can be found on the registration page. We will have COVID safety protocols in place, but we're most excited nonetheless to host Youth Retreat this year and to see how God will move. Sign up this week before the price goes up. Everything you need to know can be found at acc.church/youthretreat. Make sure you stay connected with us online at acclighthouse.org and on Instagram at acclighthouse. If you want to watch any of our prior videos, you can click or tap the screen. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in our next video, and I can't wait to see everyone at Lighthouse this Sunday.